We got a barn burner for you guys today. We're back after the holidays. Hope you had a great holiday season and a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, and whatever else you might be celebrating. We got a great show for you today. Checking in with the one, the only Kye Kelley, fresh off his huge win at the Snowbirds Outlaw Nationals, presented by Motion Raceworks, race 1 of the Drag Illustrated Winter Series. We're just a few weeks away from round 2, the U.S. Street Nationals, presented by M&M Transmission. We can't wait to get back down to Bradenton Motorsports Park and see who's who amongst the baddest men and women in the sport of drag racing. But before we do that, we got to hear from our most recent winner. What's up, guys? I guess, JT, let's do this deal. Roll that intro. Listen, I've never had any problem expressing my opinions, but what we're doing here is bigger than that. These are conversations that need to be had in an unfiltered way. Drag racing's all I've ever done. It's all I care to do. I respect the history, I appreciate how far we've come, but I want more for this sport, and I'll fight for it. It's uncut, it's unfiltered. This is the show of shows. The biggest names in drag racing. No holds barred. This is the great American motorsport. Drag racing. Prove me wrong. I'll wait. Hey gang, Wes Buck here, Drag Illustrated Magazine, checking in. It is Wednesday, January 8th, 2025. Going to take me a little bit of time to get used to saying that. I can't believe another one down. Another one bites the dust. But what a year 2024 was. Saw so many incredible things in the sport of drag racing. And I think it's safe to say amongst the biggest stories of 2024 was Kye Kelley, reality TV star of the No Prep Kings drag racing series, as well as Street Outlaws reality show on Discovery Channel for years and years and years. Built a huge fan following, brought that fan following and a whole bunch of something to prove down to Bradenton Motorsports Park in December, and pulled off one of the most incredible performances that I think I've ever seen in the sport of drag racing. An absolutely incredible, defining moment, and we're lucky enough to be joined by him today. Of course, I got the boys with us, Mike Carpenter, JT Hudson. What's up, guys? You doing well?
What's up?
Doing good, man.
Kye told me he's got limited time. He's going hunting.
Yeah,
limited time.
We caught him in between.
Selling trailers right now, but yeah, hunting starts at like 4:30.
Should just came up here to northern Missouri. We could have went hunting.
Oh yeah, hey, it's not too late.
It's not too late. JT will take you. What's the saying for you, JT? Your land is our land.
Your land is our land.
I like it. I grew up really liking hunting and stuff, and where I live, hunting's not the greatest. So if I lived somewhere where y'all live, it would be amazing. Yeah,
we have great hunting up here.
You'll have to.
I was talking to a guy in a bar one night, and he said, man, I've got so much land. You live down in Texas or something. Yeah, I was in a bar one time, and he said I can hop in my truck and drive for days and never get off my land. I said we own the same truck.
What do you speaking of which, isn't turkey season in like November?
No, it starts here March the 10th or March 15th.
That's spring season.
Spring,
spring,
and then there's fall, and there's a fall season.
When's spring season in Missouri, JT?
Deer season then is like
spring season for turkeys.
Spring, it'll be like in April.
Yeah, April.
Well, Kye, let's
maybe the snow
consider this an invitation. We'll meet in Missouri, and JT will take us turkey hunting. I told you I've always wanted to go turkey hunting, never been. You're a pro. JT owns everybody's land.
I'll have some of my boys take you turkey hunting. They go get up early. I like staying up late.
all you gotta do is show us the land. We'll do the rest.
There we go. We'll take it from there. We'll make that happen, man. You mentioned, Kye, that you were into hunting growing up. I put on Facebook that despite having seen your face on TV for what seems like forever now and following you on social media and stuff, I don't really feel like I know that much about like how this all came to be. Like, how did you first get involved in the sport of drag racing? Like, what got you turned on to this? A family affair or what?
So when I was like 12 or 13, my uncle was probably 300 pounds, and he built a couple of drag four-wheelers on dirt, and he ended up putting me in them, putting me on them because I was light, and that kind of got a feel for speed. I was only racing 300 feet, but then I got a little older and I bought a door car, and I don't know, it escalated from there. Like,
what kind of
fast.
4-wheelers did you race? My kid brother always raced like a Blaster he had, and then a 250R. He did a little bit of drag racing. It wasn't very big where we're from.
Yeah, we started off on a Warrior,
raced, yeah.
and then we went to a Mojave 250, and then we did Banshees after that.
Banshees. That was like the ultimate status symbol growing up. Like if you had a Banshee.
For drag racing, if you're going to jump anything, you got to have an R.
Yeah. I got a whole collection right now, like right outside this wall at my shop. I got two 250Rs, a Suzuki 250, a Banshee. Like I got all kinds of stuff. I got a lawnmower back here with a Raptor 660 motor on it.
I think I've seen that lawnmower. I think you've done some videos or something with that, right?
Yeah. We actually street raced Farm Truck and Asian with it one night.
That's what it was. And, I knew I'd seen that thing.
Yeah, Sunshine drove it, and we wanted the advantage. So we were standing there at the intake. Right when he went to take off, we opened the nitrous bottle, and the nitrous went in and he took off.
What about, Farm Truck and Asian? They've had some interesting exploits with some nitrous bottles. How about the one where they strapped Asian to the chair and then and let go?
I was worried about that deal.
Yeah, they definitely didn't think that
he was
through.
worried about that deal.
Yeah, they didn't think that through, and it almost killed Asian pretty much. So.
It was like,
I mean, it's pretty damn funny. And we had them on here, and we were joking about it and talking about it, and they were like, "Yeah, that we don't talk much about that." Like it was kind of a sore subject.
They should have used like motorcycle nitrous bottles or something, not the big ones.
They didn't need to use a 10 or 15 pound bottle or whatever they had. So whenever you got started, like with your own car, what kind of like, what was it? Were you always kind of like knowing that in your mind you wanted to like race heads up? So many of us start out bracket racing or with a fast street car. Or what was like?
Well, the way it started was there's this guy down the road from me. His name's Tyrone Williams. And I used to ride my 4-wheeler down to his house, and every Sunday they'd all gather. They'd boil turkey necks, and they would foot race and street race right there in front of his house. And people would be out there arm wrestling, shooting basketball, playing dice, and that got me into it. So I got tired of riding my 4-wheeler over there and watching them race. So I was milking cows at the time and working at a grocery store. I ended up buying my first car. It was a 65 Chevy 2 Nova, had a little 406 small block in it, naturally aspirated deal, and that's how I got my start. Like I started street racing over there on that little tiny road every Sunday. And then you know how it goes from there. Once you get the itch, you can't stop.
Yeah, it's a sickness, man. There's no turning back once it starts. When did you like see were you involved? Like, it seems like, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but like my kind of recollection of the whole rise to prominence with Street Outlaws was really rooted in cash days, right? So these big money, buy-in deals with a bunch of street racers that would come from different parts of the country or whatever, meet up in some location. Everybody puts up a little bit of bread and you race for it. Was that kind of like, how quickly or how early on did you start getting into that whole scene?
That's what got my start really with Street Outlaws. I was a superintendent in an oil refinery. I was on night shift one night, and I looked on Facebook and my name kept getting tagged like hundreds of times. And back then, nobody knew who the hell I was, So I was like, what's wrong with my Facebook? Like, did something happen? Did I accidentally post a naked picture or what, So anyway, I looked at it, and there was this group, NTZ Racing, and Big Chief had posted in there looking for who y'all's guy is from Mississippi that could beat us on the street. And everybody kept tagging my name. And they invited me to their first cash days. It was $16,000. I went over there and beat all the 405 in one night and won the cash days. Then they invited me back to another one. It was the biggest cash days ever put on in history, still to this date. It's $56,000 cash days. And that's the one where I blew my intake off, and I hurried up and put vice grips on the intake and won the race. And I won that $56,000 one. And then Chief quit inviting me to cash days after that. So I need to go back.
No more Kye. We don't want Kye to come anymore.
I think that's about the time we caught wind of it. We ran a story on you. It wasn't a big, I think it was just like a one-page feature. Do you remember this, Wes?
Yeah.
It was really
I had to call
on.
Steve Johnson to get Kye's number to see if I could get Kye on the phone so we could do a story. And I remember I was driving down the road to La Plata, I think to go get JT or something. And I finally got a hold of Kye, and we talked for just a little bit. And yeah, that was really early on in all this. There's somebody in the comments telling me to ask you how you ended up with the Shocker Camaro. Is there a story behind that car?
Not really. Looking on Racing Jump one night at work and seen it. The dude wanted $10,000 for it. It looked really good in the pictures. I drove through the night, went and bought it, and got it back home, tore it apart, and looked at it, and realized I bought the biggest piece of shit you could ever buy. So that's when I got introduced to Wizard race cars. He's local to me, so I took the car to him, and we pretty much grinded all the Gorilla welds it had off on it, and TIG welded everything that needed to be TIG welded, and put gussets where gussets were missing, and we made that car what it was. It used to be Hank Stubbs' car back in the day, and it used to go right, go left, and flip backwards. And now I know why. Like, the car didn't have no kind of bracing in it or nothing. Shocker started off as a screw blower car that Hank Stubbs had.
No shit.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So all those early days, like, when did you get the nitrous bug? Like, when did that kind of get introduced to you? Because I guess that was kind of like the prevailing power adder in the street race scene for a long time.
Yeah. When I had that first car, that Chevy 2, like, it would run 1050s, and I wanted to go faster, and ended up getting with Steve Johnson. And back then, when I was a nobody, Steve Johnson hooked me up with a nitrous kit because he knew I didn't have the money, and that's why I got a lot of respect for that dude. That's why you still see Induction Solutions on the front of all my nitrous cars. Like, he might not do nothing for me once every 5 years, but he was the first guy to ever sponsor me when I was nothing. So he means a lot to me and what he did.
It's crazy, man. I think we all have, like, those guys that believed in us maybe before we believed in ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of amazing to see how that works. Steve's a good guy. We've known him since, honestly, day one.
Yeah,
with the magazine.
He was an advertiser very early on. I can remember.
And he was like a pro mod. Like, he was a player in that space.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He was an IHRA pro mod guy.
He had didn't he have Rob Vandergrift's one of his 57s as one of his first pro mod cars, like the teal.
And then he ended up with one of Gary Shear's cars, I think, like one of those late model ZR1 Corvettes, which I actually miss those cars. I think that they make a good looking race car. At least in my opinion.
Did you ever think? I mean, just now we're talking about pro mods now, so like coming full circle. Now you're Kye Kelley, pro mod racer. You won the damn biggest pro mod race to date. I mean, did you ever think, you're talking about all these jobs? I was about to have to start a list of the jobs that you were listing that you had, and making it from that first car to now. I know we've talked about it, and we've actually got a feature coming out in the newest issue of the magazine. Gonna dive into this a little bit more, but just, has it hit you? Like, has it sunk in? What happened just out of nowhere about a month ago?
Yeah, no, man, that's something that's just unbelievable. Something I'll never really process. I mean, that don't happen. That was just a magical night, When the car wasn't there, I was there. When I was off, the car was there. Like, it was just a team that me and Jeff put together that weekend. And my two little young crew guys, they didn't mess up nothing the entire week. And usually in a week of racing, they go through $1,000, $2,000 for stuff that they break just.
That's how you learn. That's how
you
learn.
The one thing that happened at that race is my brand new. I've been procrastinating on buying another neck brace because they're so expensive, and I finally bought the new lightweight carbon fiber Bandit or whatever it's called. You know which one I'm talking about. But anyway, I wore it one pass. I put it on the back of my car, and in the pro mod world, we realized that you should run without the wicker bill. And it slid off, and Sunshine smoked it with the Mini Cooper. So I was like screaming and stuff, and then finally stopped. And when he stopped, the back left tire was sitting on top of my neck brace. Like, the car was off the ground. And
but at least those things, we know those things will hold a Mini Cooper.
They're definitely tough. I actually had John Sears look at it, and I used it.
If you ran the rest of the race with no neck brace, let's just skip that part.
No, he used it. Yeah, he used it. It's just well used. It's a used piece.
Went from being brand new to 10 years old in one day. So,
oh my God.
Leave that out of the way.
As much, you make a good point though, because as much these deals have become, something of a war of attrition in a lot of ways. Like, just being there at the end is a significant challenge in and of itself, just keeping everything running. I talked to you on the Shake and Bake show a few weeks ago, right after the race, like the Tuesday night after. And we were talking, one of the coolest things, I think, and I want to make sure we tell this story and just talk about these young guys. I was actually having this conversation with one of our sponsors earlier today that, one of the biggest issues that I think exists, like specifically perhaps in all of drag racing, but definitely in our corner of the world in pro mod, is that, good help is hard to find across the board. And it's especially hard to find people that are willing to go fight the battle that is going drag racing. I mean, it's not easy. It's hard from the moment you get there. Matter of fact, it's hard in the shop. It's hard driving, and getting young people that have the gumption and the ability, the know-how, and the willingness to learn to go do this stuff is a real challenge. I mean, and that's before we even talk about the issues with not having probably as many tuners as we need in this space. We got a lot of guys that got their hands in 10 different cars, and it's a big challenge. But you've got these two young guys, Sunshine and Puddin', who I've fallen in love with. I think they're the coolest dudes ever. But I know one of them is your little cousin.
Took a shit, and I'm ready. What did he say?
Took a nap, took a shit, I'm ready to see this thing
go down here. Man, I had to replay that a couple hundred times.
Oh, I watched it like 50 times. So, I mean, I know it's hard to get help, I mean, how did this, you've put together, you told me that they've torn some stuff up or whatever over the years, but now you've got some real rock'em sock'em robots with those guys.
Yeah. I mean, I just trial and error, man. A lot of, I'm a laid back guy, but man, they've done some things that made me lose my cool, and they definitely just sit there and took it while I was screaming and kicking and throwing shit, and they've learned from it. I guess you could say, every safety rule is written in blood. Everything they've learned is written in blood because it's been from the ass chewing. and I'm not like that. I'm not a Pat Newsy when it comes to talking to your crew. Pat's one way, and that's how he likes it. I can't be like that. I try to be their friend, but when you mess up all the stuff they messed up in the beginning, you just can't help it. You lose your cool. And it worked, though. I see why Pat's always got good crew guys, because if you chew their ass out, they get better right then,
Yeah, they get better right then. Yeah, lesson learned on the spot. It is a cool thing to see, though, man. And one of the things that I thought was cool is all the people posting pictures with you and stuff. What did you think of your overall reception? I'm really proud of this group of men and women. I've told you privately that my goal here in many ways is to, create something of a brother and sisterhood, a group of people that share a vision and are swimming in the same direction. I was really proud of how everybody embraced you. Did you, what was your take on that experience and how people welcomed you into the Pro Mod fraternity?
And I ain't gonna lie, I said it before, I went there kind of nervous thinking that, people would, I don't know, I guess you'd say, thought they were better than us, and everybody was welcoming,
Oh, he just hung up on us.
Got a phone call.
Got a phone call. We'll get him right back. Don't worry.
It was amazing though. The people. I mean, just not just Kye, but you had Kye, you had the Street Outlaw guys, you had
Scott Taylor was
Brown,
there,
and
I think you
had Eric Enders, and I mean
that was a vision early on for that.
It was
to combine all those people.
Yep.
And bringing them all together and seeing that galvanizing this community is the most important thing, the most important goal or mission that we can serve as a group is how do we continue to keep this group of people swimming in the same direction and working together, and recognizing that what's good for one of us is good for all of us, man. And I think that to me, that's kind of the magic. When I think about those moments of having all the drivers on the starting line at World Series, or having everybody up there in the tent to do the chip draws and seeing everybody interacting, to me, that's the real magic of this. I love seeing the record bump spots, and I love seeing all the great races and the 359s or whatever. But seeing this group of people really working together, to me, is that's the magic.
There was a lot of people. There was a lot of people that was rooting for him. Which is weird how far we came in the past 8 years, 10 years or whatever, going from the hardcore fans, maybe flipped the Street Outlaw guys a little bit of shit, back in the day. But hell, man, everybody was rooting for him, and it's a great community.
One of the coolest things was Kye's video guy captured all that, the whole process in the staging lane, some of the tension leading up to that, the tension of the chip draw, getting Kye's reaction and talking about some of that, and just seeing, that the respect went both ways. I think that you saw guys dapping you up, Kye, and then you're like, oh man, I hope I don't draw Erica Enders or somebody like that. So just seeing it kind of go both ways was really cool. It's just not it wasn't a one-way street. And I think maybe you expected that going in, but your guy did a great job kind of capturing some of that stuff. I'd love to see more of the social media teams and more of the content teams that are following around a lot of these guys, showing some of the stuff, even though it may not be perfect. We talk about that a lot, that everybody's afraid to show imperfection or any weakness or anything, but I think capturing some of that authenticity goes a long way, and that's kind of what the whole Street Outlaws thing has been built on.
Who is your content guy? Who is that video guy that's following you around? Because he does a kick-ass job. Right? We need to give him some props.
Tommy Killingsworth. He's a friend I had growing up. His dad is like the local legend around here, the big gasser builder guy that builds all our rear ends, our center sections, and all that. And it just kind of worked out as somebody I really knew, really trusted, and he's really good at what he does. So.
He's hella good at it, man. There are people in the comments are saying the No Prep Kings guys do content better than anyone, and I can't agree more. Like throughout the course of the last decade or whatever that we've seen Street Outlaws and No Prep Kings rise to prominence, like that was the big lesson that I think the takeaway was, is like these guys are building stars. They're sharing their lives. They're telling people about themselves, good, bad, or otherwise, and living with the consequences. And I'm hoping that can rub off on this community of people, because it's a little bit, I'm sure it was unusual for you. I mean, having a camera stuck in your face, like I'm sure it took a while to get used to that.
Yeah. Tommy, one thing he will do is he don't like watch out for me. Like if I go up there and I miss a burnout, he's posting it. I'm like, look, man, when I look stupid, don't show everybody. Like, no, they want to see everything you do. So
yeah,
he does
that's
true. And, it's good and bad, but that's me. Like whatever you see is 100% me, because he don't filter nothing out. I have to watch what I say because he'll let them know what I said.
That's what makes it. That is absolutely what makes it. I watched that whole video. It was like 30 minutes or an hour long, and I mean, it was a great. Flo does a great job capturing the on-track stuff. We've got a lot of different things going on trying to capture it, but like that was another unique perspective. And to me, it takes all that to really tell the story of what's going on at that event and capture the emotion. What about, we talked about the reaction of some of these pro mod guys to you being there. What's been the reaction of some of your Street Outlaws and No Prep Kings
peers?
Peers and racers that race with you over there. What's their reaction to it, and what are you hearing out of that whole group?
Well, I mean, like the Murder Nova and Clay Cole and a few of them, they want to come do it. You got a few guys that still kind of hanging back, like Ryan Martin. I wish he would come, because I feel like he's one of our elite guys. Like if we're coming to battle against the pro mod guys, let's bring Ryan Martin. That's how I feel. But he's holding back a little bit. It's because he don't think he has the car to compete, because his car can't get down to weight, which is probably smart. That's probably why he's good. But I would at least come give it a couple stabs on test day and just see what it does.
Yeah, I'd like to see that.
Is that who you're asking for a friend for a pro mod roller on Facebook today?
Nah, that's actually for me. I just didn't want everybody.
Nah, man, nah. We can't have you. We can't have you in a pro mod. You gotta.
You've got people telling me. I'm getting calls every other day, like, "Hey, I'm building a pro mod with steel roof and quarter." I'm like,
we had to go in. I don't know if you noticed. We had to go in and add some clarification around the rules around the weight break for the steel roof and quarters, because we were already hearing, all right, well then I'm just going to build me a pro mod wheelbase with steel roof and quarters. If that's like, no.
It's like, bro, it's a wheelbase rule. It's a wheelbase rule.
Yeah,
it's a wheelbase rule, and it's like that's the thing that I think was being lost, or missed by folks. Is it's like that was the purpose of it. It's to make sure that a stock wheelbase car, which you clearly prove, can run with anybody, with the best in the world. So I mean, it's not
just
an impossible thing. I mean, it did look like it was fun to drive.
Yeah. It'd be a lot easier if the wheels were touching the ground, but.
No, it didn't do a whole lot of that.
If you ever notice, on top of my car, we got tape going down it and across the blower hat to let us know which way to point it, because I can't drive it when I get way down there.
Hey man, gotta do what you gotta do.
Straight ever. Like I might be pointing straight at the wall when I leave, and then it just goes straight.
I love it, man.
We've also heard that the wheelbase doesn't matter.
Yeah,
that's not a disadvantage.
Yeah, I've drove pro mod cars, and I've drove my car, and my car is definitely a lot more of a handful than a pro mod car. Like you got to make life or death decisions in there,
with this little rule that we slid in there is actually not even. I mean, it was on our radar, but we kind of put it in there at the end just to make sure. Let's get something that these No Prep Kings guys, maybe if they want to come over here and race, let's put in something to help encourage that a little bit. No big deal. And then we've heard more about that since the race than anything. That your win has everybody, put a microscope on that. So I mean, it's really cool to see that, something that we never thought. It just kind of speaks to the fact that we never thought it would happen. We never thought it was going to be a factor at all. Now becomes the thing that we're focusing on.
Yeah, I never thought I could come over there and win. Like every round, I didn't think I could win. Like it never was a time where I said, all right, I really got these guys, I was like, at the end of every race, I was like, wow, we just did it again. Let's go to the chip draw, So with that being said, I mean, I'm not out talking shit or anything. I'm going to this next race trying to qualify.
But I mean, what you did too, though, we had a great quote from Jay Cox, I believe yesterday, saying that his eyes were open to the fact that, yeah, you can have a fast car, but you better be on your game on the tree, or you're not going to win shit down there. And I think that is another thing, rules aside or whatever else. I think you really opened everyone's eyes to, you got to be 020 or better, because of the way the rules are, how tight the field is. That's how you've got to separate yourself, and you put on a clinic down there.
Yeah, I tell you what, Spencer did it too. The Pro Tree is a lot faster than I'm used to, so I had to program myself for that throughout qualifying. Because if you go look at qualifying, I didn't cut a good light the entire qualifying session, and I was trying. I just I finally figured it out, how to cut a light on a Pro Tree. And
do you think, where did your confidence, before the race happened, you put a thing on Facebook that I thought was awesome. Boosted was messaging me about it, that you called your shot. May not win the race or outrun everybody, but I will bet whatever you want to bet that I'll leave first against whoever's in the other lane. And I was surprised because, like you said, you haven't raced Pro Tree a lot. You do all this instant green stuff, and there's all sorts of craziness with that, and it's different from the track to track, and it seems like it was always changing. How did you gear up for that, or how do you muster up that kind of belief in yourself?
Well, I mean, I've just always been pretty good on reaction time. I figured the Pro Tree would be the same, but I just had to learn how to stage the car and all that so I could use my reaction time. And we did it, like I said, through testing, it was easy because the tree was slower through testing. I don't understand why or how or whatever, because I really don't know anything about the tree. But when it got time for qualifying, the tree was fast. And them yellows was coming down as soon as you staged the car, pretty much. And so it took me the whole qualifying session to figure that out. And then I come up with a little game plan and went up there for E1, and it started working out.
Clearly, man. I mean, you were 10, 12, 13. The only round that you didn't leave first was there in the final. But like you said, the car came through. Let's talk a little bit about just the magic. I mean, earlier I guess it would have been last year now, but you went to the PDRA national event in Virginia, and it was kind of your first time, and you raised a lot of eyebrows out there. Went a couple of rounds, ran really well. How was that received by your No Prep Kings brethren? Because I know there was all this hubbub about never lighting the boards, right? And you go out, and I kind of felt like it worked kind of in the favor of MPK, because there was all these questions about how fast are these cars really, and do they run as good as everybody says, and draggy this, draggy that, and then you go light the boards and you're right in the mid 360s, right? I mean, go 364. That was impressive. What did that how was that received by the masses? Were they glad to see you go out and light the boards and prove what you can do?
Yeah, well, it kind of become a competition then. I lit the boards, and then Jim Howell lit the boards, and Ryan was telling us, you don't want me to post my time slip, because he's all secretive all the time. It was kind of a little fun, friendly competition, and really nobody got mad about lighting the boards. It's not like grudge racing what we do, We in the grudge world, if you post a time, you can't race a grudge event for a whole year. We just don't light the boards because we feel like anticipation is better with the street style cars we have. Looking at y'all's race, it kind of seems like people like lighting the boards, but it makes it harder for us too, as far as tuning and knowing how fast we got to go, because we don't know how fast the guy we're racing is, And that's why we have to really focus on being really good on a light and having a car that goes consistently down the racetrack as fast as you can go.
I think the whole thing at the end of the day really worked towards proving that, I mean, I remember putting Ryan Martin on the cover of Drag Illustrated. It's been a couple of years ago now, but we named him Racer of the Year. And I'd heard all these stories about him swapping engines on the side of a street out in, wherever you guys were racing, somewhere down in South Texas, and all this work they were going through and all the testing they were doing. And we had guys like Todd Tutterow, and I can't remember the other NHRA ones, like maybe Robert Height. I mean, there were some big names that we had nominated as well. And we ended up giving it to Ryan because I truly believe like these guys deserve to be mentioned in the same breath as all these other badass drag racers. And I felt like we needed to kind of cast our vote for identifying these guys as real deal racers, mainly because of the commitment that was required to run NPK. Like going to 15, 16 races a year, like that in itself, even if you don't do well, even if you're horrible, that is a commitment that not very many people in our sport have ever made. Like, and I think that was something that people kind of slept on, is how much racing you guys were doing and how much time you spent on the road and how much maintenance was going into running these cars. And I wanted to make sure that everybody that was involved with that scene kind of got the respect put on their name that they deserve. I'm talking like Birdman now, but it's like, it was important. And I think you kind of just took that to a whole nother level at the Snowbirds by winning that race, proving that you guys, as a community belong in the conversation. And I can't, I think you've established yourself as way more than just a threat. I mean, you're a lock to be a contender, and it's an incredible thing to see. But like you said, you got to go to this is as competitive, I think, as we've ever seen indoor slammer drag racing. And I think the next, the U.S. Street Nationals, it's going to be another war just to qualify,
Yeah, well, I feel like I came to that race and kind of took everybody by surprise. Like, people were probably putting their A to B tune-ups beside me, and they probably wasn't really trying on a tree real hard because they were racing a steel body car from NPK, Yeah. Now them big bad pro mods are just going to be giving me their best tune-ups and knocking the tires off or going fast and blowing up beside me, and so it's going to be a lot more exciting this time. One thing I do.
We lost your audio, Kye. I think somebody clicked you, probably. Or you get a text or a call. What the JT,
maybe just come out and come back in here, Kye.
Yeah, here. What the
Oh, good. You know what happens? People get on here and this, dude, I've called you. You were on the show, and I was going to call you.
Yeah, it's 100% what happens, man.
I'm trying to do the show.
No, it's so funny. I'll get a bunch of texts during it, and it's like every time I'm like, oh crap, dude, I'm literally live. We got him back, Kye. No sound.
You there? We got
sound.
you, man.
Call him, T. Yeah, Jim House in the comments. Mississippi cell service.
Let's hope he's got some Wi-Fi. Starlink, Elon, hook you up.
JT, you may have to jump off and call him.
Yeah.
I'm literally getting one right now. A phone call right now.
I'm just going to remove him here and then.
Okay.
Yeah, tell him to pop back in.
Yeah, he'll have to pop back in. Dude, I've gotten to know Jim House. The coolest, or the thing that I think is worth talking about is for all the hell that the No Prep King guys and the Street Outlaw guys have taken over the years. This is a really good group of dudes. I don't know them all, but like there's a handful of them in the comments right now. But like, I mean, Disco Dean, I've known Dean for a long time. Great guy. He might be the funniest person on the planet Earth, to be honest. Jim Howe, I mean, I've only gotten to know Jim like pretty well in the last like year, like specifically the last 3 or 4 months, maybe 6 months, I guess. But like, there's some really good people in that community that are like die-hard drag racers, dedicated to the craft. And it's like, I just think there's some good people over there, and I'm glad to mix these worlds. I think that this is something that we really can't talk about enough, is like, while we put a ton of focus on pro mod, I think there's like a belief that we don't care about any other type of drag racing. It's just the vehicle we're choosing to use to grow the sport as a whole. Like, if
we want to see it all put together under that one umbrella.
We want to see it all put together. And one of the biggest things that I think have hindered the sport of drag racing is there's so much going on that it's hard to focus the attention in one place, right? Because, I mean, how many times throughout the typical season do we have an NHRA race happen the same weekend as a PDRA race, happen the same weekend as an MCA race, all these different things happening at once. And there's a lot of people that care about this stuff, but we continue to divide their attention.
Not to mention all the champions that you have in each one of those divisions.
Yeah, not to mention each one of those have a dozen classes, and it's really hard. And I think that we're going to have to like accept as a sport. I mean, this is like some high level, big vision shit, but I truly believe we've kind of got to pick a path that this is going to be what we're going to get behind, and this is what we're going to focus on, and it will benefit everything else. Like I was talking to Luis De Leon about this with Fuel Tech. We announced yesterday that Fuel Tech has joined the Drag Illustrated Winter Series as our official vehicle management system. Excited to have Luis and Anderson and the whole gang at Fuel Tech involved with what we're doing. They've been a longtime supporter of ours at Drag Illustrated, but kind of took it to a new level with this new partnership with the Winter Series. And we were just talking about the trickle down that happens from Pro Modified, because like, you know, Mike Castellana goes out and builds a brand new Pro Mod car basically every other year or whatever. Randy Weatherford builds a new car every other year, sometimes more often than that. Those cars trickle down and they end up in Top Sportsman, or they end up in RVW, or they end up in Quick 8 racing, or on a big, you know, out at Piedmont racing Big Dog. It trickles down to all these other categories and supports them as well. And a lot of those parts, you know, move as well and get repurposed or reused in a different venue. And that's a positive thing, right? And it's also
Pro Mod used to be the recipient of the trickle down from Pro Stock, from
or Top Alcohol Funny Car,
whatever it may be. And that's kind of how it's so Pro Mod, I think, has leveled up, like you're saying, to where now the trickle down is coming from it. So much R&D and technology. We talk about this. We actually talked about this earlier today with the R&D that's going into these different combos. That trickles down to these different classes. Now everyone's kind of refining the technology for Pro Mod because it's become so competitive and so universal across the board. Like we talked about, if you want to build any car, you want to build a Pro Mod that you can get some radials under, that beats, you know, X number of classes rules, so you can go race it as many places as possible. So I think we're getting there, man.
If you're building a Pro Mod, you've essentially built a multi-purpose race car. Yeah, like you can race it in every door slammer series that exists. You can race NHRA, you can race wherever you want, PDRA, Midwest Drag Racing Series, all these different smaller regional series. You can be a part of all those. You can put radials on it and go run RVW.
We don't recommend it, but
you can go down and run grudge races or whatever. You may have to sit out for a year once you've turned the boards on. But I mean, if you go down to any of those, you know, big time grudge races, Big Jake's events or whatever, those are a lot of Pro Mod cars that got radials on them. You know what I mean? And that's what I think. And there's a comment here, Alexander Joseph can't race MPK though. And that's where I think that's probably the biggest issue that exists with MPK moving forward, is that you're requiring the community, like this group of people, to build cars specific to that one venue. And I think that's a really tough game to play. I mean, now we've kind of seen that it's possible.
It can work.
Cole Pez is switching from his Pro Mod to his steel roof and quarters car because they have more experience with that car and they've made more runs in it and had more success with it. So they feel more comfortable taking it down there to the Winter Series, to the US Street Nationals, and the next one, the World Series of Pro Mod in March. They feel more confident with that. But I think that's kind of the magic of this and why you're going to see more people gravitate towards Pro Modified racing. And I saw a comment a moment ago, the feeder system is also very important. Don't you agree? The fact that there's a place you go run Pro 632, Amber Franklin is a fantastic example. That's a 10-year-old Pro Nitrous car, right? That has raced, you know, Tommy Franklin won championships in it. They put a 632 in it, slow it down a little bit. Amber gets her C legs, wins a championship, does really well. Now they're putting a big motor in it and they're going to go pro mod racing. It's like that feeder series is much more natural than anything else that exists in drag racing today. I mean, there's a pathway there.
This Alexander Joseph, and I saw this on this video that Finnegan and Ryan Martin did. Did you see this? Where they say that Pro Mods are ugly. I've never heard, after Kye's win, I've never heard more talk about how ugly Pro Mods are compared to, like, you know, the MPK cars, which is something that, you know, being so ingrained in Pro Mod like we always have, I've never thought about it that way. But they're like, yeah, they put up this picture of like I don't know, some cartoon car with this long stretch nose, and they were like, yeah, this is what a Pro Mod looks like.
Yeah, I would argue that if you look at Pro Mods, to me, look like real life Hot Wheels. They've got the right stance, you know, because not every Pro Mod car like sits right, or excuse me, steel roof and quarter car sits right. Like they don't have the stance.
But that's what makes it what it is. We actually were talking about this earlier today. We had a great picture of Kye's car turning off at the end of the track at Bradenton with the chutes out, and you can see how much higher off the ground the rockers are, and how it's not, it's not
in the weeds like most of these pro mods
for
are.
a pro mod. Yeah.
Yeah, Kye, you back? We got audio, buddy?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you now, dude. Well, we won't keep you too much longer, but I didn't want to end like that. How about those T-shirts? Who cooked up that idea? I mean, if you haven't seen Kye's T-shirt, what's the website? KyeKelleyRacing.com?
Yeah.
KyeKelleyRacing.com. They release these badass T-shirts with the old Camaro up on the bars, hanging flames out of it. You got Vic Alvarez blowing out of a lawn chair. The Sesame Street sign.
That deal with Vic, he's like a meme now where he's doing this with his head. And we saw the original shirt design and sent it to Vic and said, man, the only thing this shirt is missing is you like this on the shirt. And then the revision had him in it. So kudos to whoever your art guy is. Are you
going to have those at US Streets?
Yeah, the girl I use is actually Maximus Design. She's right there close to Bradenton. It was her idea to make a snowboard shirt, and then the ideas just kept rolling in. I kept texting different stuff. Now we got a duck up on the pole with a frowny face and wearing his little black hat, and the Cheeto bags actually say Streetos instead of Cheetos. It's just all kind of little stuff that we were doing.
I absolutely love it.
Mowing down a Christmas tree and hitting the ground big. That was cool.
Yeah, that was the whole situation. Is absolutely.
I do think you should put Stevie on your intro though. Like that's the only thing your intro is missing is Stevie like whacking the Christmas tree.
Yeah, we need to update the intro anyway. So maybe Blake can throw that in there.
Yeah, it'd be perfect.
Oh, what a deal, man. But what do you make real quick? I just want to kind of ask, like, racing alongside, Antron Brown, Spencer Hyde, Erica Enders, like these guys that are like pretty well established, racing in NHRA, going to all these different things. Like, how much does this kind of cement like the decisions that you've made? Because I'm sure it was like a big risk at one point in your life to say, hey, I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to go try to make a living drag racing. At the time, you're racing on dusty ass streets and all this stuff and these crazy events that Sam and the gang were putting on. Like, is this kind of like a full circle? Like, holy shit, this was the right choice. Here I am, and I've got something. This thing has legs that are going to last a while.
Yeah, I mean, I remember me and my which I'm back with her now, but Lisa, my ex-wife, me and her was laying in bed one night whenever we actually got the opportunity. And, I called my boss, who was the project manager at Turner Industries where I used to work. Told him the opportunity I had. He was like, man, go. He's like, you can always come back. Like, you always have a job here with me. So we decided to go out on a limb and do it. She just started working as a nurse and felt like between me hustling and her being a nurse, we could afford to pay our bills, even if it did tank. And just kind of took off from there.
It's crazy, man. I mean, whoever would have thought that there would be, but I think that that's for me, one of the most exciting and promising things about all of this is, and that's why I give like a ton of credit to MPK and Street Outlaws is because maybe not a ton, but there's like a dozen guys on the back of that show and both those shows that are earning a living drag racing. And there's not a whole lot of people that can say that, man. I mean, that are earning a living, paying their bills, putting their kids through school or what have you, and living a good life on the back of drag racing. And I think that's the dream, or should be the dream, for everybody.
Here's the T-shirt design that they had.
That's so sick.
It's funny, isn't it?
Yeah. It's great. One thing I wanted was the sky to look like nighttime. We ran out of colors.
Ran out of colors. No, man, but it really is. I mean, I think that it's the dream to. I talk to like young kids and junior dragsters, and like it seems like I get an email a day from some aspiring young bracket racer that is like wants to race for a living so bad, but they get up to the point where they're like close and they realize that it's pretty much going to take you being super rich. Like if you want to race at a high level, you're going to have to be super rich or know somebody that's super rich. And I think that what you guys have demonstrated and what television and like broadcast television and cable TV demonstrated that there's enough interest. People care about this. People get a kick out of it. People like it. I mean, I would have to believe a lot of the fans that were built on the back of Street Outlaws and No Prep Kings probably weren't drag racing fans beforehand. Do you agree with that?
So many people that walk with us at the track and don't have a clue about what our race car is. You know? Like, I have my Regal there, and they'll ask me, my shopper, that's an 87 Regal and an 84 Camaro, you know. So it's I don't know. It's just, but the fans really is what made this whole deal for me. Like, you know, the way I race is they support me buying my merch. They come to the tracks, they buy tickets for us to be there. It's kind of makes you feel like the people's champ, you know. Like I like feeling like the people's champ instead of going out there as some guy with a bunch of money, you know, just there because I have plenty of money. Like, I don't know. It just feels. I feel like I've been given the opportunity to race for the people. That's what makes it worth it. That's why I show up and show out everywhere I go. I feel like I'm doing it for somebody that spent their last dollar and come watch me race. You know?
I think it's a pretty magical thing, man. Those are big words. I mean, that was like why Michael Jordan hardly ever missed a game, because he knows somebody, you know, scraped and clawed to get a ticket to see him play. And by God, they were going to get to see him play unless he wasn't able to walk. And I think that mentality will serve you well for a long time. What was the fan reaction like? I mean, I know that we had more social media engagement than we'd ever seen in the 20-year history of our company. After you won, we like set every record that we had for web metrics, social engagements, etc. I mean, I'm sure your fan base that has followed your career since those early cash days is like, holy shit, this guy just won the toughest pro mod race ever.
Oh yeah, I mean, I had the biggest reaction I've ever had. Anything I've ever done, pretty much broke the internet for 3 days, you know. And it was cool. Like it's the most. Like I walk around PRI, everybody there said something. I couldn't pass nobody without stopping. And it was a good feeling, man. Like it made me feel like, you know, top of the world for a couple of days. Now we're back to the grind. I still got to put a crankshaft on ready to come over. Still got a lot of work to do, and you know, we're gonna get back on the grind and hope to show up on the same car with us.
Well, we're looking forward to it, man. Kye, get back to work. Go have fun hunting this afternoon. Stay in touch, and I look forward to seeing you in a couple weeks, brother.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
Appreciate you, Kye. Take care, buddy. All right, guys, I want to take a quick second here and remind you that each and every episode is made possible by way of our incredible sponsors here on the Wes Buck Show. Of course, Redline Synthetic Oils, Stroud Safety, Aeromotive Fuel Systems, Racers.club. Make sure you log on to Racers.club and check out. We got some brand new merch coming out in the coming days. Excited to see the reaction to this stuff. And, of course, log on to thewinterseries.com and you can buy merch. You can participate, follow along with the series. We've not been sending people there as much as we should be. So you can follow along with all the action, catch up with latest happenings in the sport, of course, on dragillustrated.com, but there's also thewinterseries.com. JT, Mike, I saw a comment here a second ago. Somebody was asking me about the schedule, and I thought we did adjust the schedule for the U.S. Street Nationals for those that noticed that we have qualifying starting on Thursday, and we're going to run the first round of eliminations on Saturday. You're always going to hear something about these things, but I did just want to clarify that these are decisions that are made with the best of intentions, and it's always to bring the race to a safe, concise close. And there's nothing that anybody dislikes more, I think, in the drag racing community than these races, you know, dragging on in the wee hours of the morning or late at night. And when you're contending with cold temperatures that we're anticipating in the evening in Bradenton, Florida in late January, we've got to make the necessary decisions to make sure that we run a safe race. That's always going to be our priority at any event that Drag Illustrated does, is that it's safe and it's as concise as possible. So we're obviously experimenting with some strategy.
A lot of cars. There's a lot of classes, a lot of cars. I believe it's the first race on the Radio Outlaws points series. Expecting a ton of cars, even more pro mods than what we had at Snowbirds. So with that being said, too, we've got to get a little bit ahead of it. And we do have 5 rounds of pro mod qualifying as well.
And I think one of the things that I try to talk to everybody about is that this is like will be an evolutionary process. I feel we have the schedule really close to where we want it with the World Series of Pro Mod coming up February 27th through March 1st, where we'll start qualifying on Thursday, continue qualifying on Friday, and then run the race to completion on Saturday. But that's something that requires a kind of limited car count. That's why we're really selective about the classes that we add and how many cars we bring in, because we've arrived at this point in time where it seems like drag races, like as events, are almost measured by how many cars show up. You know, like it seems like every time there's an event, you know, the first thing I hear from the promoter or whomever is like 600 cars, 400 cars every year at Indy. It's 1,000 cars, you know, right? Which is a fantastic thing. But with what we're trying to build, which is an entertainment property, like a concise show that happens in a relatively small window of time that can entertain people for a few days or, you know, a few hours a day, it's important to keep it concise. And we have to kind of resist the urge to add 27 classes, because while I want every one of my friends to come be a part of it, I know that we've got to protect the integrity of the event itself. And I think we're learning a lot through the US streets and the Snowbirds with all these additional cars and the radial classes and all this different stuff. We've kind of got to manage that. And obviously we weren't going to swoop in and reinvent these events, these races that have existed for years and years and years and have a track record. But as we move forward, we will of course make choices and make decisions that ultimately my goal is to arrive at a concise schedule that exists for all three events and whatever we do beyond that. Because, you know, we're not done here, but this is, in this moment, I feel like we're learning what the best kind of operation will be. I think we'll see the best schedule at the World Series of Pro Mod, because I do want all the racing to happen on one day. I think that it's important, but you can't have 300 cars on the property.
But you also want the racing. Yeah, you want the racing to happen in optimal conditions when the fans are there. We want our winter circle to be a big deal. We make it a big deal. We don't want that happening at 2:00 in the morning when nobody's there. So
no, I mean,
we invite everyone,
a lot of that stuff,
all the fans to join us and make that a big deal. So all that's got to happen. And I mean, it's cold in Florida right now, even, and it probably won't be as cold as it is right now with this weather that's coming through basically across the whole country. But you can see, I mean, this is going to be new for us as well. We're used to racing in early March in Florida, which is quite a bit different than December and late January. So,
well, and if you look back, you don't have to look back very far to see this event having been impacted massively by cold weather. Mm-hmm. It was just a few years ago that the race had to be delayed and ultimately canceled because of cold weather. And I think that doing whatever we have to do to make sure that we're racing when the sun is out and it's as warm as possible is what we've got to do. And I'm really good with it, man.
It's gonna be a great show, man.
Oh, and Saturday night under the lights.
We don't have their class.
You know,
if we don't have their class, just tell them to show up. We'll put them to work. They can be involved.
Yeah, if you want to come be a part of it, come hang out. We got plenty of stuff you can do. But
Chadwick from Yard House, he showed up.
We made buddies with a waiter.
Yeah,
with our waiter at Yard House. We ate at the same place every night, and he just happened to be there. And we would always get out of the track late, so we couldn't go to Wolves Head because they were closed, which is our normal spot. Wolves Head Pizza in Bradenton, that's normally where we go to. Or Poblano's, the Mexican place. We're shouting out our boys. But we went to Yard House because we were getting done late. We were getting there at like midnight or whatever, which is another reason why we got to get over earlier. More restaurant options. But we made buddies with our waiter, and next thing I know, I'm exchanging numbers with him, and he texts me and asks if he can come to the track. And I'm like, well, we're not doing anything today but set up and testing. So if you want to wait till Saturday or something, just wait till Saturday. He's like, no, man, I just want to come hang out. Hell, he worked all day with us. I felt bad at the end of the day. I was like, bro, you didn't have to like work like a dog all day. And but he did it with a smile on his face, man. And yeah, he got a t-shirt out of the deal.
Came back, brought his family.
Yeah, came back, brought his girls, and we had a big time, man. But no, I really do think that I saw Jim Howe say in the comments that like, amen, less is more. And I think that that's another one of the many lessons that can be learned from what they were doing with No Prep Kings is they had, I mean, probably on average, less than 100 cars, maybe 150 on the high side at those events. And, and they still lacked a lot of structure, and that's something that was kind of because it's a TV show more so than anything else. But it's like, if we can marry that where we've got a high quality show that happens in a small time window, a small time frame, or as small as possible, I think we can really make some magic here. And that's when, we're like a few dominoes from falling. I saw Steve Carlson in the comments, Wes, when are you going to bring Pro Mod racing to Southern California before all the tracks are gone? Like, That's the dream, man. The dream is to have this Winter Series really exist as a standalone happening. But that is the dream, is to have a handful of these events. I don't think we ever want to do 20 like the NHRA or anything like that. I don't think the race, we haven't reached that point. There's not enough money in it for the racers to justify that kind of effort. But I do think, and that kind of investment, but I do think that as we move forward, there will be an opportunity to have 3, 4, 5 regular season races, I think, that feed in to the Winter Series. I think that's kind of like my long-term goal. And I want to see, I think in order to get the partnerships and the major brands that we want, like if you're ever going to go get a Fortune 500 company to jump on board with these things and really elevate this deal and get national media or international media exposure, we're going to have to continually expand our footprint. Like what we did with the evolution from our first race, the World Series of Pro Mod, to now a 3 races, we expanded our footprint on the schedule. So now instead of like occupying a few weeks out of the year, we occupy 90 days. Like we're taking up the attention of the drag racing community for 3 months. And now if we can, over the course of time, extrapolate that out and slowly grow where we're occupying, 8, 10, 12 months out of the year in creating content, Pro Mod content around that, from sea to shining sea or internationally, like there's some big opportunities here, man. And when I look at Pro Mod, like that's where the opportunity is. Like I love all these other classes, but I think we've got to pick one and ride, so to speak, and grow it so that everything else grows with it. Because if we're able to take Pro Modified to a major league sporting, venue, or get it on Netflix or get it on Roku or get some of these live streaming partners and get Flow Racing to, continue to expand and make a bigger investment or what have you, whatever the future looks like, that is when all these other, you'll be guilty by association. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Hell, yeah. I'm casting my business plan.
It felt like I was taking notes. I was in class.
No, I think that's, I'm hesitant sometimes because I feel like I'm like spilling the beans, but I also think people get a kick out of hearing my crazy ideas. And like, that's the crazy idea, is I think Pro Modified is the universal language of our sport. I've said it for 20 years now, and this is the direction that we need to go, and we need to push this. And it's door car racing ultimately. That's what is important. Cars that still look like cars. You can have a debate about steel roof and quarter cars, stock wheelbase cars versus the kind of stretched and swoopy Pro Mod, and I'm here for it. I'm cool with that debate. But the fact of the matter is, it's still cars that look like cars. I saw another comment that was talking about how many 69 Camaros we have. I mean, it's going to take someone stepping out on a limb and building a new Corvette or going and building a 41 Willys, and being successful with it. I mean, I think the 8th mile opens the door to not having to consider as many of those aerodynamic factors that you see in quarter mile racing, which could open the door to some more creative body styles. I mean, one of the biggest stories that probably hasn't been talked about enough, and we need to rectify this. Matter of fact, I'm going to call him when I hang up or get off the show, is Craig Sullivan in that 49 Mercury dipping into the mid to low 360s. I think he went 62, did he not? And that's a car that looks like a rolling brick, but it's a fan favorite. People love that thing. It's one of the most photographed Pro Mods probably in the history of drag racing. And it's because it's not a 69 Camaro and it doesn't look like everything else. And he's proven that you can be competitive with a car like that. So I'm hoping more people decide to kind of create like their own brand by way of their car. I think we will see more of that. And when the opportunity and the eyeballs continue to grow, like I would argue that there's never been a door slammer race that received the visibility and the exposure of the Snowbird Outlaw Nationals. Not even our own events.
No
Nothing
doubt.
has
got
ever seen
the numbers,
those
the
type
flow
of
racing
numbers.
back it up, which was
the
incredible
flow
to
racing
hear
metrics back it up. I mean, that was the most viewed door slammer drag race in the history of the known universe. And if we can continue to grow that and continue to get more eyeballs on this, cars that look like cars that are driven by cowboys and cowgirls that drive it like you stole it every time they get behind the wheel, like that's what this sport was built on the back of. I think we've tried too hard to be Formula One or be NASCAR. Dude, this is a bunch of do-it-yourselfers and badasses and outlaws with dirt on their fingers and grease under their fingernails. Like this is grassroots drag racing at the highest possible level. And I think that that's the really magic of this deal, is bringing this is an authentic version of ourselves.
Yep. Let's talk about some of the exciting stuff we got coming up for U.S. Street Nationals. We've got Murder Nova making his debut. what's some other headlines? Brian Loans is going to be joining us.
Yep, we're going to have
NHRA,
the voice of the NHRA on Fox broadcast. Brian Loans will be in the booth alongside Steve Logan and Al Tucci. I think Sean Berganova Ellington.
Flow Racing is going to be doing their deal. We got to stop and give a shout out for a second to our partners at Flow Racing. You know, I think it's been a little bit of a bumpy path at times to get here, but anybody that's subscribed and watched the Snowbirds, that was an absolutely flawless presentation.
Awesome job
and broadcast. When you go back and watch it, it takes time, man. Just like I said, we say it takes time. It took time for Kye Kelley to get where he is. You know, winning the biggest pro mod race ever. It took time for us to get where we are as a magazine, as a company, as event promoters. Look at Cletus. Somebody's talking about Cletus on here. There's just Vic Alvarez, Bradenton, you name it. It takes time, and with Flow, I think they've nailed it, and I'm looking forward to seeing how they continue to improve their broadcast.
We're going to up the ante a little bit at the U.S. Street Nationals and up the ante a little more at the World Series of Pro Mod. So I'm excited about that. And I agree, man. They did a fantastic job, and I couldn't have been happier with it. It was the first race that I think I've been to maybe since all this started or before we got together that Alicia didn't go to, my wife. And it was funny because she goes, I really got to watch the Flow broadcast, had never really watched it before, like extensively. She watched the whole thing and they killed it. I mean, they absolutely, she goes, it was so much easier not being there because I could follow along on Flow so closely and watch it in real time. And it was like, to me, I think that
the drone coverage, pit cameras, boom cameras, all the different angles, just some great presentation, top end interviews, man. It really, it got as close as I think you can get to like a TV national broadcast that's, you know, streaming, and you can, you know, watch it on any device and play it back. So anyone that was on the fence, sign up. I mean, you still got a lot of great races coming if you sign up for their monthly plan or the yearly deal. Obviously, the year's just getting started. There's so many great races.
Oh, dude, at this point in time, it'd be the best money you could spend in drag racing. I would say $150 to join Flow Racing and get PDRA and all these different sanctions and series that are on there. Midwest. I mean, there's so many different things that you can follow along.
What about this?
Yeah, Cletus, I don't know if it's official yet, but I know there are rumblings that he's going to run Pro 275 at this U.S. Street Nationals. I'm excited about that. I think that that's going to be a really big deal to have him there. And to be honest, I think that, you know, my ultimate goal is to do whatever is required to get him into pro modified racing. I think that I really want to we've got another big one. I'm working on Larry Larson. It's looking very promising that Larry Larson is going to be able to make it to the next two races. Exciting deal.
Jim Howe says he's showing up, but lighter. So that'll be exciting. I don't know what he's doing exactly, but he's going to get
Scott Taylor
a little bit lighter.
Well, he's going to have to cut one of those gigantic arms off.
I know, dude. If you just, skip the gym for a couple days, you'll be all right.
Jim, I used to think I was like,
that's protein,
pretty good shape. Then I started hanging around Jim Howe, and I'm like, well, I got a ways to go. But no, it's
if he shows up missing an arm, we'll know.
Yeah, Larson, I think that's exciting because
I really want before you do that, though.
Yeah,
you might as well cash in.
I want to see
that. What was their show? There was a show on HBO where the dude cut his arm off as an insurance fraud. Is that the one with Vince Vaughn? Bad Monkey. You have to go watch it. Go watch it. If you haven't watched it, great show.
I love Vince Vaughn.
Great. Oh yeah, it's a great show.
I used to get called.
Dude cuts off his arm.
I look like Vince Vaughn all the time.
I don't know about that, man. What's that?
Yeah,
I mean, maybe.
When I was shaved,
maybe a little bit.
Yeah,
he's just way funnier. That's the difference.
Oh yeah,
it's true.
I don't know. What do you make of one of the real quick? I was going to say quickly about Larry Larson. You know, I officially invited Larry. We made a deal at PRI. We had some tech, some rules and stuff that we had to sort through, and some things that had to be certified or introduced by NHRA before we could pull the trigger on it. But we made that all happen, and I think. For me, I'm excited about Larry Larson getting involved and the potential of Cletus McFarland getting involved. I got my eyes on a handful of these other folks because I really want to kind of complete the circle. Like when I look at Larry Larson, I know that in recent years he's been a No Prep Kings star, but the way I know, and I think most drag racing fans know Larry Larson, is from his dominance in drag and drive competition. And I want to see a drag and drive heavyweight as part of our fraternity, if you will. And that's why if Sick Week wasn't in February, I'd put more pressure on Tom Bailey to be involved, because I really would love to see us add a couple of those regular, well-known drag and drive guys. And I've got my eyes on a handful of those guys. I'm drawing blank on his name. The dude, Bryant Goldstone, that just rolled out a new car at the PRI show, which is quite clearly a pro modified car that's been set up to be driven on the street. There's nothing I would like more
than to get Alex Taylor. Somebody's got to have a pro mod that Alex
We've got to get Alex Taylor in a pro mod. I think that's a really, really important one to get him into, just to kind of, like I said, complete that circle. And that's why the No Prep Kings guys were so important, because they do help complete that circle. Because right now we've got, and I got to tell you, there's a lot of these Top Fuel funny car guys that are showing interest in what we're doing. You know what I mean? And it's like, can you imagine a world where Ron Capps is in a pro mod car or Clay Milliken is in a pro mod car? Like, that's not impossible. Like, I honestly think that's an achievable goal.
A few more to play into it. I mean, that's what's going to be awesome about it, where it comes down to the driver. I mean,
and then you create a venue where anybody who's anybody is in a single location at a single time. You know what I'm saying? And I think that is going to make this thing. I mean, it's already incredible, and I probably don't give it as much kudos as I should.
We've got Antron coming back, right? He's running all three.
Yeah, so Antron's running the series.
Erica's running the series. Erica, let's talk about that a little bit.
Oh, man.
We talked with Erica. She was didn't really know what she was getting into, I would say. And maybe even Richard Freeman didn't. It's been cool to hear some of the feedback from Richard about the Pro Mod deal. I think both of those were very impressed and excited to continue this deal and explore maybe future avenues in Pro Mod as well.
I think the thing that Richard sees is the same thing that I see, is that there's a business opportunity here. Mm-hmm. Like, and that's, I mean, there's no doubt. I remember like it was yesterday, the first time I ever saw a pro modified car in real life at Eddyville Raceway Park outside Oskaloosa, Iowa in the early 90s. It was the opening weekend. Carl Moyer had bought the track, spent millions of dollars redoing it. And opening weekend, he had this like 10,000 to win pro mod show. Your dad was there. Charles Carpenter was there. Scotty Cannon was there. The Peterson brothers were there. I mean, everybody was there, right? Pretty much every IHRA pro modified hitter was there. Carl Moyer. And I remember seeing those cars, and it was funny because my dad hates them. My dad hates pro modified. Got big picnic table wings on them, stupid looking, hates them. Always been a pro stock guy. And it was like,
come on, Eddie.
I know, man. It was like one of the first things.
Have we converted
drag
him yet?
racing. I think we're close.
The wings aren't as big, Eddie.
The wings aren't as big. That was a big
wings.
deal, getting rid of the big wings. He was very excited about that. Now that we're down to like a deck lid spoiler, deck lid wing, he's much happier.
Okay.
But he hated it, right? So we would kind of butt heads over it, because I would want to go to an IHRA race and watch, or go to anywhere there was a pro mod race and watch, because I wanted to see it. But my dad was a pro stock guy and had a pro stock car, and that was just what he was into. And I remember it was like one of the first things, like, as I was becoming like my own person, going like, nah, man, you're crazy. This is where it's at. And I fell in love with it. And I got to watch it kind of hit its pinnacle in IHRA in the early 2000s. And then the ADRL explodes onto the scene, and Kenny Nolling makes the decision to split the classes. And it was this huge thing to go pro extreme and pro nitrous versus just pro modified. And that kind of spun off to a whole lot of different deals. And here today, I find myself looking at it and I go, I'm just as passionate about it as I've ever been. Like, I absolutely love pro modified, and I do think it's the best our sport has to offer. But there really is, like, anything you look at in a business, from a business standpoint, you're thinking about inventory, right? And their inventory exists. I mean, there are probably 300 cars in North America alone. Probably that's a low estimate, that can run 370 or quicker in the 8th mile with big tires and bars. And I just think when I look at that, I mean, there's probably not 30 killer Top Fuel cars on the planet Earth. And it's not to say that Top Fuel isn't the undeniable. I took a bunch of shit on social media about saying that Pro Mod's the not new Top Fuel. And you know what? I stand by it, because I really do think it's the hot new thing. It's the hot thing. It's stood the test of time for decades. And now it's really emerging as a marquee attraction. And I think it will continue to do so the bigger the personalities get. I don't think it has anything to do with going 300 miles an hour or going whatever. I think it has everything to do with the personalities that are involved. And I think that as we continue to shine a light on these personalities and introduce the world to the Kye Kelleys and to the Steve Kings and to the Melanie Salemis and to the Jason Scruggs and to the Scott Taylors and the Jim Howes and the Mike Bowmans and the Lyle Barnetts and the Stevie Fast Jacksons. As more attention we put on these people as athletes, as drivers, we have to celebrate them as people. The cars are secondary to them and their personality and their individual story. Like all those people I just mentioned come from a wide variety of backgrounds. You got Jason Scruggs, who's a cotton farmer. You got Kye Kelley, who worked at an oil refinery and quit his job to go full-time drag racing. You got guys like Todd Tutterow who earn their living drag racing, right? You got guys like Stevie Fast Jackson who earn their living drag racing, but started out selling tools, right? Driving from shops to shop, selling tools. I mean, these guys all have relatable stories that I think that's what we have to dive more into. I saw a comment early on talking about it's crazy to think that a show based on street racing does so much better at creating content than anybody else in the drag racing space. And it's because they recognize how important that is. In almost every other walk of motorsports, specifically in drag racing, creating content, doing interviews, those are all extra. Those are all things that you might do, maybe not, maybe you do it, maybe you don't. In that world, they were going there with the mission of creating content, creating a show, developing stars. And when that's your focus, when that's your priority, you're going to serve that priority. And I feel like everywhere else in the sport of drag racing, that type of ancillary thing, the things that are happening around the edges, just kind of get ignored or blown off, right? And that's why we put so much effort into like our winner's circle, so much effort into pre-race interviews and interviewing people in the pits and putting a camera on a racer as often as humanly possible. And I think that's what it's going to take. And as we continue down this road, getting more eyeballs on pro modified style racing, I think we'll see more and more of these racers from other parts of the sport gravitate here, especially as we remain in the winter where they can still go chase. I mean, Erica Ender's Mike is a great example. Like they're not going to stop racing pro stock. Richard Freeman bleeds pro stock. I mean, it's his absolute favorite thing in the world is pro stock racing. And he's never going to stop doing that, or not anytime soon. He's pot committed. I mean, he's got like a dozen of these things, but he recognized that there's an inventory here. There's a whole lot of racers that are looking for solutions, that are looking for turnkey options, that are looking for an edge or looking for a performance advantage to separate themselves from the pack. And I anticipate him making a full push into that world. And I saw a comment here from somebody about nitrous cars. Mike, we can talk about this a little bit. Amber Franklin is one of the big names who's going to be making her pro modified debut at the fast approaching U.S. Street Nationals. I'm really proud of Amber. She's been on the cover of the magazine. She's been in the Women of Power. She's been in the Drag Illustrated 30 Under 30. She's someone we've really been following since her infancy in the sport of drag racing. And to see her kind of show up and be a part of this it's a pretty proud moment for me, and I'm excited about it. But the reason I bring it up is we're going to have a slew of new nitrous cars back in the mix. Marcus Butner be back in the mix, which is exciting. Keith Haney back in the mix, which Keith is another one that I think is a big needle mover for us. He's a talker, loves to promote, loves to talk about drag racing.
Tony
another
Wilson,
killer nitrous car.
Tony Wilson's headed down to test today, actually, so he'll be down there. It just seemed to work out to where most of the people that had conflicts for one reason or another with PRI, they were all nitrous racers. I mean, and it sounds coincidental, but it worked out that way. So we're excited to have a handful of those back. And I know the one that everyone wants to see, Jim Halsey, is I believe he's still working on the new car, getting everything ready, and we'll hope to see him at World Series of Pro Mod.
But I do think we're going to see nitrous cars make Matt Deach, really, we need to have Matt on the show next week. Actually, that
dude is DJ McCain.
DJ McCain.
Man, those dudes, if they'd have just had one more pass or just a little bit more luck, they'd have been in the show at Snowbirds. Mm-hmm. That car was running well, and they just had some gremlins and just didn't. It's one of those deals. By the time you get close to put it together, they were out of runs. Yeah. And so I expect them to come out swinging. It'll be much more competitive. And I think we'll see the weather change a little bit. Maybe that'll play into their favor as well.
Yeah, I really wouldn't be surprised. I mean, Keith Haney was running really good at the end of the season. The Franklins always run good. I anticipate Marcus Butner with Jay Cox turning the screws on that car. And I also wonder if Jay having to tune one car.
I think Jay forgot how to tune a nitrous car.
I bet he's going to – I venture to say Marcus Butner will be as competitive as ever. with Jay's focus as far as a tuning
Well,
capacity
I've
going
heard some stuff about what Marcus has got going on. I don't want to spill the beans, but he's doing everything he can to come down there and not bring a knife to a gunfight, as a lot of these nitrous guys like to say. So kudos to him for continuing to refine his program and do what it takes to step up. Because I mean, dude, we saw basically every combination ran a 359 at the Snowbirds, and we talk about that you know, that's the new bar, and I can't believe that now has become, you know, the standard, which just a couple of years ago it was mid 60s. Now we're out of the 60s completely and into the 50s.
It's crazy, man. I do think that we'll see a nitrous car, if the conditions are there, perhaps dip into the 350s. I know Keith Haney told me explicitly that that's what they're coming to do. He was, when I talked to Keith late last week, he was on his way, or over the weekend actually, he was flying to North Carolina to go spend some time with Pat and Liz Musey and make sure that he had enough bullets and enough horsepower to come down and, like you said, make a strong showing. Going back to the Murder Nova thing, it's really cool that this whole backstory, for those that don't know, you know, Keith Haney bought the car that Mark Wardenhausen had been driving, that Tim Slavens drove previously, bought that car from the Zimmerman family after he unfortunately passed away, and took the car. It was a little tore up, took it to Blake Housley, redid the whole car, wrapped it, rewired it, plumbed it, put a whole new drivetrain in it, and
Blake
then
to bring his car.
I think he's so busy working on stuff that I'm not sure that he can get away from the shop. Blake's certainly invited and has been invited to be a part of the Winter Series. I'm not sure if we'll get him down until the very last one, the World Series in March. But nonetheless, I do think that Sean Ellington being in that car with Mark Mickey calling the shots on it, which has, you know, Steve Petty involved from Proline and the whole camp there, Troy and everybody at M&M. Obviously, Jay Cox is now looking at things as well. So I think I wouldn't be surprised at all if Murder Nova shows up and is right in the thick of things. I really think it will be.
No doubt. And now that's the expectation, because Kye won this race. It's like if Murder Nova comes down there and he's not, it starts to put a bigger spotlight. It's not a real enviable position to be in. Normally, I think you kind of could just do like what Kye did, sneak in there, and I'm not really, you know, I'm just wanting to qualify. I'm just happy to be here. Well, that's no longer the standard for those guys.
Mike D. Bruner is asking if there's been any rule changes. John Sears is in the comment, our director of competition for the Drag Illustrated Winter Series, who's done an absolutely incredible job along with Mike and Vic and everybody involved. There were some minor changes, I think.
Yeah,
if you want to just run through them.
Just some small tweaks based off what we saw. And if you go to the winterseries.com and go to the event info rules that are under there, you can see everything's highlighted in red. Just made some small adjustments to try to tighten things up even more, which is funny to say because I don't know that you can get things any tighter than what John and our group here and his team have done, and taken something that I think a lot of people believe to be impossible and made happen. And we've done it over and over and over again now, which is absolutely incredible. And I'm super proud of everyone involved in making that happen.
You guys put some serious hours in on Rules Talk at PRI. Every conversation from morning till 2 a.m. man,
I got cornered anytime I was in the booth. Somebody was coming by to talk about rules, but hey, that's part of it. That's part of what we're doing, and I think it actually is a very critical part of the whole. It's at the core of everything we're doing. If we don't have a competitive show where each combination is in the hunt, I think we lose a lot of momentum.
I agree. Well, and it's like you also have to have the desire. Like, you've got to want to make it work. You know what I mean? And I think that we are so hell-bent on running all these cars together because I think back, like, despite Pro Modified having been around since the late 80s, I think that our class in Pro Modified, we're still training people. People are still learning to kind of come out of their shells, right? We've seen it with Steve King, driving Gene Pilot's Savage Corvette. Hilarious.
Have you seen his videos that what ET edits, I think, does his videos now? Like, dude, yeah.
It's absolutely insane how good.
You need to go watch them if you haven't
on camera. Like, because a year ago you'd have thought Steve didn't speak. right? I mean, I had a hard time getting him to text, let alone talk on camera. And now Steve King is like becoming, I mean, Derek Ward is another one that's really coming out of his shell, and it takes time. And being that it takes time, I think it's important to maintain the cars as like a dedicated storyline, right? Like we need all the different combinations, and we need all that drama to kind of support as we develop these personalities. Like, because we do have, you know, some guys that are really, 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 you know, smart and well-spoken and eager to be on camera, like Keith Haney. He can't wait to talk on camera, can't wait to be interviewed. A lot of these guys aren't quite like that, right? They're still kind of getting used to that. They've raced, and most of the time they've never seen anybody from a TV crew or a film crew come by their trailer. So as we're developing kind of our stars and turning these guys and gals into stars, we need those cars to be a strong supporting storyline. And that's what I think is so important about having nitrous cars and turbo cars, blower cars, pro charger cars, Harts charger cars, because it gives everybody something, another thing to root for, another reason to like latch on to something, because you got to throw a lot of shit against the barn door and hope some of it sticks. Right.
That's what we're doing. It's working so far.
So far, man. So far, so good. It's exciting, man. It really is. And parity is crucial. Jim Parks is talking about that. Like, we have to make sure that anybody who rolls through the gates there feels like they have a chance to be competitive. I don't think it's important that anybody has some huge advantage. I don't think that that's really the what needs to happen. Is you've got to create an environment where anything you show up with that fits within the confines of the rules can and has been competitive. And we're there right now. And I think the biggest thing that we're going to have to do is just continue to protect this group of people, you know, because racer's going to racer. We're going to find a way to push the envelope. We're going to find a way to shorten the fuse. I remember Don Prudhomme famously said, after they shortened the NHRA racing surface for nitro cars from a quarter mile to 1,000 foot, he goes, we're just going to shorten the fuse. These crew chiefs will just shorten the fuse. We're still going to blow them up. We're still going to blow bodies off of them. We're just going to shorten the fuse. And we've kind of got to do whatever we can, which it's tough. It's like the curse of heads up drag racing, but like, that is something that we have to kind of keep near and dear our hearts and at the front of our minds as how we can prevent this from, because I would love to see this level of performance maintained for decades. I mean, I think small incremental gains are fantastic.
Yeah, you can't get to the point where you're just intentionally slowing them down, and then where they could be so much more, so much quicker than they are. But yeah, you're going to see incremental gains. We just can't have the huge swings and all of a sudden someone goes out and lowers the number by 1/10, and now everyone's chasing that. And I think that series honestly have failed in the past. I think that there's the argument of too many rule changes or too many rules, but I think in the past I've actually seen, different series, big and small, fail to keep up. And then when one combination gets way too far ahead, that could be a class or series killer. So there's a balance in between.
No, 100%. And I think that you've got to like resist knee-jerk reactions, but also take action, you know, and not sit on your hands and not wait for something to become a really big problem and nip it in the bud.
When you start hearing, all right, well, then everybody's going to this car and going to this combination, that's when you've got a little bit of a problem on your hands. And you got to quickly just get a hold of that and make sure that you're still creating a platform where you're not encouraging everyone to go to the same combination, same car, or same whatever.
And I see a comment here, which we always get great comments from Drag Racing Mayhem. Thank you. But he talks about ProMod uses a formula very similar to GT3 racing in Europe with a balance of performance stuff that GT class is known as one of the most sustainable that have been around for almost 20 years or for 20 years, which in that area is a lot. And I think that that's another like key term, sustainability. And that's really what one of our primary focuses here is just like creating something that can sustain for decades to come, right? That we can maintain around this level of performance. Obviously, you're never going to stop these guys from improving. That's the nature of the beast. And they're going to make incremental gains, but we do have to keep it in check, because if you want to see the biggest number, you need to go to Bonneville. Right? I mean, there are places to go land speed racing, but we're drag racing, right? We're trying to put hyper competitive cars against one another.
Yeah.
And see who
And
the
there
best
are,
is.
well, there's other places that you can see if that's your thing. Donald Long's got a lot of different stuff for you to check out. Some of this grudge stuff, even though they're not lighting the boards, if the rules are not very restrictive or whatever. And it's just kind of, it's back to the no rules. Who's got the quickest car? If that's your thing, I mean, there's places to go do
there's
avenues for that, but that's, not whether you believe that is what pro mod should be or not, this is where we are in 2025. And when you're running all the classes together, this is Donald likes to say index racing or whatever it is that he comes up with. But this is what we've got to do to make it sustainable, like you said.
And that's what I'm like the most proud of, because, you know, despite what anybody might put on social media or whatever, like I'm more worried about the long-term sustainability and success of this sport. Like, I want to see my kids running the Drag Illustrated Winter Series someday. I want this thing to continue on for years. I want people who have made millions or invested millions and millions of dollars and countless hours into their race program have a great place to race for a long time. Like, that's really important. And that sustainability across the board is a big part of this. And I think that that's really at the heart of what's happening here, is creating something that's got, you know, it's got some real legs and could be around for a long time. And hopefully, you know, ideally, and with, you know, a whole lot of effort and hard work, we will prevent it from becoming something that's just a, you know, your dumpster, you're blowing up the motor every run, you're having to put rods and pistons in it after every run, and it just becomes completely unsustainable. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like when I think about, I mean, and like I said, this is no shot against fuel race. It's fantastic, but you can ask anybody, like, it's gotten to a point where they run the car so hard that like you're junking thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars of parts after every run. And I don't know that that is sustainable forever. I think it's really been incredible how far it's come. But I when you think about this modern world we live in, sometimes things change. And I really do think that pro mod is the future of this deal.
What else we got
for rules talk?
Yeah, that's it for rules talk.
Forever.
Rock Carzoli in the comments. I don't know if anybody, we got 5 minutes. If anybody wants to throw out some questions, I do want to say that we'll have a brand new sponsor on the show next week. Very exciting. Applied Racing Technology has joined the Drag Illustrated family, jumped on board as a primary sponsor, one of our primary sponsors of the Wes Buck Show. So I'm excited to have Brian and the whole gang down at ART involved with what we're doing here. It's going to be exciting to get them and kind of bring them further into the fold. They're a Florida-based company, so it's exciting because we've got such a footprint down in Florida, and we'll be able to do a lot of cool stuff together. But, you know, make sure you check out Applied Racing Technology, support the companies and the brands that support us and keep us talking about drag racing each and every week. If anybody has any questions or comments, we're happy to dive into a few of them. We got about 5 minutes left before we wrap this bad boy up. You getting how much snow did you guys get in Missouri?
It wasn't as bad as they thought. I think it was like, I don't know, probably 9 inches, probably something like that.
Jeez, that wasn't too bad.
No, it blew well, because I mean, we were talking up to like maybe 22, 23 inches or something. And then of course, all the blowing, you know, the wind blew pretty hard. So,
oh man,
pretty significant.
What a deal.
Drifting.
Wes is
fun. I got a new truck, so I got to go out and bust drifts.
Yeah. Wes is purebred Texas now, so he doesn't even understand that anymore. Again,
I really don't, man. I've been in Texas for almost 5 years now, and I don't do cold. I found out it was super cold this morning, but it looks like we're gonna get. They're saying as much as 5 to 8 inches of snow tomorrow, and the whole. I mean, it is
to get like
bracing for the apocalypse here.
Not too bad.
Charlie Bass is asking, did we give the nitrous cars a weight break for the U.S. Street Nationals? No, we did not. We have the nitrous cars as light as they compete professionally anywhere in the country or the world for that matter. I believe the weight minimum right now is down around 2,400. Is that correct, Mike?
Yeah, you can get a little bit lighter with a smaller engine, but the most common is 2,400, which these guys, honestly, there are very few of the nitrous cars that are competing that can even get that light. So,
and that's an important thing for the fans to know, Charlie, is that one of the biggest challenges that exist with these cars that have 1,000 cubic inch engines, nitrous bottles, a lot of electronics on them, it's hard to get them that light, which is one of the big challenges.
You can't really take weight or do anything, honestly, to help the nitrous cars. You have to add weight to the other combinations, which they hate, but I think they're coming around to it. I think we heard less about that this time than we have from any of the other races.
Well, when you've got Matt Dietz coming out with a brand new, I mean, he's got Johnny Placino helping him, who's a pro stock heavy hitter, right? That's new to the pro mod scene, new to tuning a nitrous car. They go down there and run like they did. Give them another race. That car is a player.
There's just fewer of them. This is what we've got to talk about too, that there are fewer nitrous cars out there, unfortunately, seemingly every year. And there's it kind of seems like they're up against the wall, where these other combinations are making gains, and there are so many of them out there. They're sharing data. They're moving forward at a quicker rate. So when we're going to combine them all together, we do have to slow those other combinations down a little bit compared to how they run in Pro Boost or in other areas. So it's nothing crazy. And I think it all honestly works out. I think it really is the pattern. If you're going to run one single class with them all together, I think that we've kind of laid the groundwork for what that should look like.
Yeah, and I mean, I do think Charlie's saying titanium everything and a horse jockey driver. I still can't imagine getting to 2,400. I mean, I know Keith Haney's able to do it. There were some guys that struggled, especially some of the guys that are bigger guys. And that's one of the balancing acts that we're kind of doing right now.
We used to be 2,300. We used to be under 2,300 back in the ADRL days. But those were smaller engines, cars that were purpose built with a lot of weird, sketchy stuff. That these cars are built better now, to be honest with you. They last longer, they're stronger, they're more rigid, they're safer. So you have all that in consideration. It's about as light as you can get a nitrous car.
And I think that there's 2 points that are worth making. One is that I do agree that we just need more of them. We need more of them racing. We need more data being compiled. We need more of them in competition. And I think that will continue to kind of up the ante and push people forward just organically. But I want to echo the sentiment of Jim Howe in the comments here, is that I'm confident that a top tier pro nitrous car can come down to the Drag Illustrated Winter Series, any of these 3 races, regardless of it's in December, January, or February, in any of those conditions, any of those different track preps or what have you, and run the number. I think that they can be in the mix. That's my 1,000% belief that a top tier nitrous car can come down there, qualify in the top 3 or 4 spots for sure, and win the race. I mean, we saw Jim Halsey without a question have the car to beat at the World Series of Pro Mod back in March of 2024, and didn't make the trip in the final, and it cost him. But I mean, that was the car to beat throughout race day, and he was the driver to beat. He'd done a fantastic job, and I think that's. I mean, the proof is right there. So I'm really excited to see the nitrous cars come down and make a big run at it. Turbo cars definitely making a comeback. Kevin Stevenson got some big news coming in the next few days. I saw one last question from Krista Burgess, who all is supposed to come to this upcoming race, the U.S. Street Nationals, that wasn't there at the Snowbirds. Off the top of my head, Amber Franklin, Keith Haney, Marcus Butner, Larry Larson. We'll see Carl Stevens Jr. back in the mix. Rick Horde, 2 really strong turbo cars. We also have Ryan Hayward in the mix, which will be fantastic. Robin Roberts will be there in a new car, I believe, his new Pro Mod car. So at least a new car, same driver.
Murder Nova.
Murder Nova, Sean Ellington behind the wheel of a twin turbo Pro Mod. So you're going to have, a handful of fresh faces for sure. And the usual cast of certified badasses that have been a part of this deal since day one. And it's a real coming together that I'm genuinely excited about. And if you haven't been there, make sure you log on to the winterseries.com. Tickets are available. We do have, they're moving, man. I'm excited about it. We felt like there was a big opportunity to really up the ante at the U.S. Street Nationals, and shit's happening. So make sure you get your tickets, come down and be a part of it. We got people coming from all points of the globe to be a part of this deal. And at the end of the day, kind of closing notes here, the Winter Series and all 3 of these races within it, it's I think the best drag racing that's going on. I think it's the best competition that exists in drag racing today. But I'll tell you what, it's also a hell of a good time. We have fun. It's mission critical for us. Drag racing is
vibes.
Serious business.
Hashtag
for a lot
vibes. I heard about that more than anybody.
No, I mean, and that's the thing, dude. Is
it the vibe? Is the vibe of the race?
It's the vibe.
The way we're running it, the mentality we all have. It's fun. It's getting
and I think
having fun going drag racing, because I like to say, this shit's way too hard, way too much work if we're not having fun. And that, if maybe we don't talk about that enough. That's something we're trying to bring back to having fun.
That's, I think, mission critical, man. I mean, I think that's one of the things that have been
JT
lost.
does a great job of that.
JT is actually probably the driving force. He is the fun coordinator here at Drag Illustrated. But I'm going to tell you guys that is something that we've all got to kind of accept, I think, in my opinion. Like, no matter how high a level we are in racing, the fact of the matter is that we're blessed to get to do this. Drag racing is something we get to do. We're not out here curing cancer. And I know we all take it very seriously, but this is our passion. For many of us, it's our hobby. And I think that it's important when we go to these events to put having fun high on the priority list. Of course you want to be competitive. That should go without saying, right? Of course you want to win the race. No racer worth his salt rolls through the gates not wanting to win. But I think what needs to be high on that priority list as well is making sure that we're enjoying this time with people that, I mean, we're fresh off a global pandemic where we weren't allowed to leave our houses, right? So the fact that we get to go hang out with our friends and people that share the same interests we do and see things the way we see them and go drag racing, I mean, it's a hell of a blessing. And that's what we really want to make sure that one thing above all else, when you come to a Drag Illustrated event, whether it's the party at PRI, whether it's 30 under 30, whether it's the U.S. Street Nationals, the Snowbirds, or the World Series of Pro Mod, we're going to have a freaking blast at the bare minimum. So come down, be a part of it, and we're looking forward to seeing you at the drag strip. I see Mark Beatty in the comments. What's up, buddy?
What's up, Mark?
Shout out to Mark and the whole squad at Redline, another one of our big supporters here, an official oil of the Drag Illustrated Winter Series, mind you, and the title right sponsor of the Professional Drag Racers Association, PDRA, which, can you believe, Mike, it'll be a couple of months and we'll be headed to Galat for the season opener for PDRA. Kind of crazy.
I think we're gonna try to make a trek to Galat and VMP. Are we not?
Yep, we're gonna hit both the first ones for sure. I'm excited about that.
In place
man.
of Nate Van Wagenen, who is going to be out of commission.
Yeah, he's going to be becoming a dad. Pretty exciting.
Isn't it
I
crazy?
didn't realize he was going to need the first 6 months of the year off.
Yeah, we didn't know that either. That's a hell of a paternity package. We gotta update our HR handbook on that.
Yeah, JT, in between chief fun officer, I need you to work on a new maternity paternity leave policy. Can't miss the whole season. Can't do it. Sorry, Nate. We love you, Allison. Happy birthday to Allison. It was JB Hamlin's birthday over the weekend or yesterday.
JB,
happy birthday, JB, all of our boys. We need to do birthday shout out.
We got to give a shout out, JB, Tom, all of our unsung heroes that do the setup, get in there early. JT's part of that. Man, those guys, there's a lot of work that goes on to set up and tear down those events.
It's crazy, man. I hope you guys all come down and join us because there really is a movement happening. There's something really special happening. I can feel it in every inch of my body. And I'm excited to have more and more people be a part of this deal. Joey Martin. What's up, Joey? Trump needs to add racing.
Is that the Joey Martin?
That's the Joey Martin. I talked to him on the phone the other day. I hadn't talked to Joey in too long, man. Joey's got the pro mod itch. He's watching closely. He's got the pro mod itch, man. Charlie Betts wants to know where to send his resume. Send it to
Joey about 2,100 pounds.
And he'll decide if you're fun enough to hang out with us.
No, man.
I do need a hospitality tent.
That's a high bar.
That is a high bar. Oh, and I was going to tell people
it's just a bar.
Yes,
we are
just a bar.
Just a
Do you guys think we should move the chip draw to the starting line?
Yes.
I don't know. The
fans
depends.
need to be able to see it.
Yeah.
I like doing it in the tent.
Thursday night was fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
I see.
If the stands are on race day, I think it needs to
Stevenson.
happen in the.
Kevin Stevenson has made it his life mission for us to have the chip draw on the starting line. But the only thing about it is that when we did it, if everyone watched the video or watched the Flow Racing deal, that was like the race was over. There were no fans there. They had all gone home. So if the fans are there, I agree. And we did that in 2020 or 2021 at the World Door Slammer Nationals in Orlando. We had all of our pro stock teams come out there and do the chip draw, which was really cool. We stacked all the cars up in the staging lanes, like the old school, like angled deal. That was awesome. So we'll work on that, Kevin. I don't want Kevin to be disappointed in us.
No, I don't want Kevin to be disappointed.
We did chip draw the first year too for World Series of Pro Mod, didn't we? The first year at
we did it on the starting line, I think.
Yeah.
Or we did it like right at the top of the water box or whatever, right at the top of staging. Yeah. I just definitely think the fans need to be able to see it. And then maybe the one on, I don't know, maybe the night before when it happens up there, or I don't know, we'll figure it out. But like I said, it's a work in progress, man. We will grow this thing. I did see one last question. Are you guys going to get the Aussies and European guys involved? We're working on it. I have tried to get a handful of those guys involved, and we will get there sooner rather than later. Like, I would love nothing more than to have some of the guys from FIA or the Aussie Top Door Slammer scene come be a part of this deal. I think it's probably the easiest route to get some of the Australian teams involved because they have a more similar rule set. The FIA runs essentially NHRA legal pro mod rules, which are more geared towards quarter mile racing. So it's a stark contrast to what we do in outlaw 8th mile racing. So we'll have to kind of figure that out, you know.
Jim Howe says he's going to get Joey Martin to help him get his car lighter.
Joey can do it, man. If you talk about the guys that could build one that's light, he was one of those early guys that would do it.
Don't tell him what that Lomad weighs. Speaking of light, you know who came and talked to me at PRI? Doug Reister.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he came up to me. He walks up. You know how he is, all quiet. And he walks up and he's like, "Hey, what's going on?" And he shakes my hand. He says, "You got them nitrous cars too heavy." I said, "Man, you're the only nitrous car that can even get any lighter than what we've got it, man." I said we couldn't have rules light enough for you to be happy.
Do you see Joey says Lomad was 2040 without him in it?
And Joey weighs like 130, so that thing's like 21.7.
Oh my gosh, that's insane, man. But all right, guys. Well, hey, I want to give a huge shout out to the most important people involved with this, and that's all of you. We couldn't do this if we didn't have everybody supporting us and participating in this conversation. It wouldn't be near as much fun if we didn't get to chat with all of y'all. Thanks for being a part of this conversation today and every day that you support what we're doing. We're celebrating 20 years of Drag Illustrated in 2025. Later this year, we'll celebrate 2 decades in the game, and it wouldn't be possible without the support we've had from each and every one of you guys. So thanks a bunch, and we'll see you next Wednesday right here on the Drag Illustrated YouTube channel and Facebook page. Remember to click like, subscribe, share the video, and bring some people our way. We'll talk soon. Thanks, guys.
See you.
Later, y'all.